I'll begin with roll call. Commissioner Kung, Commissioner Ding, Commissioner Donnelly,
Here.
Commissioner Watson, Commissioner Angelat, Vice Chair Cow, Chair Alsaroff. You have a quorum. We can go ahead and proceed.
There we go. Can you? Okay. All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here. This is our first in-person meeting since the pandemic. So welcome to everyone. Thank you for coming down. We do have two commissioners who had indicated that they wouldn't be here today, but I think we noted that we do have a quorum. So we're going to proceed. I understand we have one public comment not to be read. Do we have any other public comments?
There are no public comments in person, no one via Zoom, and no general public comments emailed.
Okay, thank you. So let's turn to the next item on the agenda, which is the minutes from the October 18th Public Safety Commission meeting. I think this was in the agenda packet that was emailed to everybody. If you've had a chance to take a look at it, does anybody have any comments, changes, thoughts on last meeting's minutes? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes from our last meeting back in October 18th, 2021.
Great. Second?
Second.
Okay. And I guess let's go with the roll call vote.
Commissioner Kung,
Yes.
Commissioner, sorry, hold on. Commissioner Donnelly,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Angelat,
Yes.
Chair Alsaroff,
Yes.
motion carries.
Great, thank you. Right, and now let's turn to the final substantive item on the agenda, which is the police department electric vehicle purchase. I understand we have a presentation by the police department.
Good morning, commissioners. My name is Tony Abdallah. I'm a sergeant with the department. And it is really an honor and a pleasure to be before you today on a project that we believe to be very transformative and exciting at the same time, the prospect of. So we're here before you today seeking your recommendation to the city council to convert our entire vehicle fleet to battery electric vehicles, along with the fire department converting their administrative fleet. First, a little background. We started about 10 to 12 years ago, really researching a better way to do business. We have an aging fleet. Currently, the average age of our fleet is 9 years old. 26% of the fleet is 16 years old or greater, and 9% of the vehicles are at the maximum age of 20 years old. We also have a couple vehicles that are in excess of 100,000 miles. So we really went to the drawing board and did a deep dive to try to figure out how we could create and maintain a more sustainable fleet while at the same time creating better efficiencies and reducing costs. So fast forward about 2 years ago to where we really started researching in earnest this better way to maintain our fleet. And with the production and maturity of battery electric vehicles accelerating, we thought we would really go in that direction to try to find a manufacturer of a couple products that would meet or exceed our needs. It really intensified about 18 months ago when Tesla released deliveries for their Model Y. Model Y is a crossover SUV that is very comparable in size to the existing Ford Interceptors that we use. So we researched that thoroughly. We researched other legacy auto manufacturers that were manufacturing EV products. And what we found is legacy auto manufacturers are really struggling with producing EVs at scale that are both reliable and perform well. Look no further than GM with the Chevy Bolt recalling every Bolt ever made due to battery pack fires. Also the Ford Mach-E, which has some really concerning performance issues, along with another significant recall for roofs detaching. So it became clear from our research and due diligence that Tesla was really the gold standard and the clear market leader in the EV space. So it became important to us at that point to identify some other law enforcement agencies that may be transitioning to Teslas in their fleet. What we found is, as of this morning, 21 other vehicles across the United States have integrated Teslas into their fleet. They're generally one-offs, one here, two there, three there. The most being Aspen, Colorado, who just approved on the 7th of this month to integrate 5 Model Ys into their fleet, along with Bargersville, Indiana, who's integrated 5 Model 3s into their fleet. The clear standout in the research that we did related to the comparison study was Fremont Police Department. And that was one of the, or actually a couple of the attachments that went along with the staff report. And there are some interesting issues that I just want to highlight. They did a 5-year life cycle comparison study with their Tesla Model S. And what they found was it significantly reduced it. One, it met or exceeded their needs, but it significantly reduced their fuel costs and their maintenance costs. If I could draw your attention to the matrix in the staff report, I want to highlight a couple of those items that we expect to realize very similarly to the Fremont Police Department. The first is the cost of energy. So the police department and city hall complex here, on average, pays about 10 cents a kilowatt hour for fuel, for electricity. You'll notice that the ranges for the Tesla Model Y in comparison to the gas Ford Police Interceptor that we're using now is very comparable, about 330 miles versus 344. Yet when you calculate the cost of energy or the cost of fuel, if you were to fill the Tesla Model Y to capacity, it has a 74 kilowatt hour battery pack. You're looking at $7.40 to fill that to capacity. Contrast that with the gas Ford Police Interceptor at $3.81 a gallon, which was the most recent purchase of gasoline in October that the city made. You're looking at $7.87 a gallon. And multiply that across a fleet of 23 vehicles, it's substantial. I'd also like to draw your attention to the estimated maintenance and repair costs. The great thing with the Tesla, both the Model Y and the Model 3, which we're proposing to integrate for administrative and detective use, the preventative maintenance of those vehicles is next to nothing. We expect to replace tires and windshield wiper fluid. That's about it. So when you calculate those costs and contrast that with the gas Ford Police Interceptor, you're looking at about $710 to maintain the Model Y annually, and about $2,300 for the gas Ford. So again, that's substantially reduced cost. In order to go from what were existing 23 vehicles down to 20, we're proposing to do that through a vehicle lease program. And when you calculate the budgets that we have for set aside for vehicle leasing, right now it's $130,000. We have an $80,000 a year annual vehicle maintenance budget, along with $65,000 for fuel. When you calculate all that together, we're actually would immediately realize a cost savings by transitioning through that vehicle lease program through enterprise fleet management. We did a 10-year cost analysis, and what we found is that we're projected to realize a total cost savings of approximately $215,881 over a 10-year period, which obviously for us is significant. But what makes it really more attractive for us as well is we get a better performing car that costs significantly less to maintain. We get a better performing car that costs significantly less for energy. And we get a better performing car that immediately eliminates CO2 emissions. In December of 2020, the city adopted their climate action plan. And the climate action plan sets a CO2 emissions target. It's the M2 play in the plan. Sets an emissions reduction target of 23 metric tons for the electrification of the city fleet by 2030. If adopted as proposed, we estimate a reduction of 2,687 metric tons of CO2 to be realized by 2030, which exceeds the CAP's emissions reduction goal by 2,664 metric tons, or as a whole, it gets the city 14.5% on their way to their overall emissions reduction goal by 2030. So it's significant. A couple of the areas that I'd like to mention that we focused our research on, they include, but they're not limited to, safety, which is organizational safety ratings and advanced safety features, reliability, total cost of ownership, the battery electric vehicle product maturity, maintenance, energy expense, charging, technology, the environmental impact over the entire life cycle, which includes the supply chain, manufacture, use, end of life, and realizing city climate goals, along with related health benefits. A couple things I'd like to highlight there and why we believe Tesla is such a good fit, along with their proven safety, reliability, and performance. This company was founded in 2003 with a mission of accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. So another of the attachments is their 2020 impact report, which really does a great job, we believe, in detailing the environmental, social, and governance issues, and how Tesla aims to mitigate that at all those levels that I mentioned. So we believe that it really perfectly aligns with the city's climate goals. Also, I'd like to highlight charging. Charging infrastructure is really the key to the success of this project, we believe. In a parallel project that's going on as we speak with the city's Public Works Department and in Southern California Edison, who is our electricity provider here for the City Hall complex. There is a plan for charging infrastructure. We're reimagining our rear parking lot. Currently, there are 36 level 2 charging stalls that are being configured for that lot, along with a level 3 charger that is slated for already approved, that's slated for the employee parking lot. So if it's passed as proposed, we're confident that the infrastructure as proposed will suitably charge our existing fleet. Redundancy for public safety operations is another key concern for us. So another tipping point to Tesla was when we learned at the beginning of this year, a 20 stall supercharger location was due to go into the park and ride at Glenarm and the 110 freeway. That has since opened. So for redundancy purposes, we'll have availability to that site. It'll also meet our supplemental energy needs. If we need to go fast charge for any reason, we can do that. Additionally, our research showed that that site is provided power by the Pasadena Water and Power Company. So the chances of concurrent power outages is minimized. Additionally, Tesla just passed the 30,000 mark for supercharger locations. So there is plenty of availability in our region should that site go down. There's other sites that are available to us as well. One other point for redundancy purposes, the city is also exploring and has in a prior plan the possibility of installing solar panels with battery storage, which has the potential, if it's sized correctly, to power our fleet, which would, not counting the infrastructure cost, but it would reduce our monthly or annual energy cost to next to nothing. So with that, I've concluded my presentation, and I'm happy to address any questions that you may have.
Thank you for your comprehensive presentation. Much appreciated. One clarifying question in the financial analysis. I noticed that the Fremont Police Department looked at 16 months of use, just verifying that the cost of battery replacement is in your 10-year projection.
So thank you for that question. That comes up, and we've researched that thoroughly, and Tesla probably addresses it better than I can, but it's in the 2020 impact report. Currently, Tesla manufactures the batteries to exceed the life of the vehicle. And that target is 200,000 miles in the United States, about 150,000 miles in Europe. They are just getting battery packs now back from the initial product releases that they are recycling. But we're very confident that the way the vehicles are being constructed now, that any battery pack issues will far exceed the life of the car. One thing else I'd like to mention too is they're on the verge of producing cars with a new form factor battery that's known as the 4680 battery. Right now, the 2170 batteries that are used to comprise a battery pack are a little larger than a AA battery. The 4680s are substantially larger. They provide better energy density and they charge quicker. So due to the delivery date, which is months out in advance, there's a possibility with Giga Texas going online at any time, probably going to produce and deliver cars in Q1 of 2022, that we could reap the benefit of a new form factor battery with a new structural battery pack that increases the safety of the car, charges faster, and they're calling that battery pack million-mile battery pack. I hope that addressed
Thank you. I appreciate it.
your question.
So a couple questions. One is, in terms of the transition of the fleet, would this take course over a number of years, or would it be an all-at-once transition?
This is a proposed all-in-once transition.
Okay. In that case, will there be any gas vehicles that will be left for emergency purposes, that sort of thing?
That's a good question. During the transition, just from a practical sense, there may be a couple that linger. But one of the things with the lease agreement is we're using the existing equity in our fleet to apply to reduce costs and the one-time down payment to get into the lease. So it's going to be preferable for us to decommission and have Enterprise sell those vehicles so we can reduce our costs.
Got it. In terms of practical application, if I remember right, Fremont was reporting their typical mileage per shift was 40 to 70 miles. Is that comparable to what?
It is. And that's one of the things that was really attractive to us about the Fremont study was it almost identically mimicked the issues that we experience with the patrol vehicles. So I'd say a shift where it was quiet, where there are a lot of mileage would be top end 70.
So charging shift to shift wouldn't be really an issue because the car would be able to be turned right around.
Correct. And what we're anticipating is much like it is with our gas powered vehicles, it really comes down to fuel management. So just as a standard operating procedure now, when it gets down to about half a tank, officers will fill. We're going to provide, I think, the same guidance that's enhanced is on a typical shift, officers will come into the department to write reports, do investigations. So anytime that they come in to the station, we're going to recommend that if it's below essentially 80%, that they top that off to 80, just so they don't have any range anxiety issues, or you don't hear any stories about them being involved in a pursuit, running out of energy. The range being so comparable, it's really not a function of the EV anymore. It's a function of managing the energy or the gas in the vehicle.
So, and last question, Sergeant, you mentioned the solar panel and battery program. In the event that there was an extended power outage due to say a large earthquake and SCE and Pasadena were out, would the solar power and battery packs still enable you to charge your vehicles even with the absence of that supply?
If the city ends up going that direction, it has the potential to, yes.
Okay, great.
That's not being proposed at this time,
No,
but that is definitely on the roadmap from what I understand.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
A couple questions. Is there any difference, or is there any sort of benefit or otherwise to the sort of features available for outfitting of the car that comes with this transition?
Yes, and thank you for that. We're dealing with some unique challenges due to, I guess, what I call the newness of the Model Y being integrated into police use. We're very fortunate that the company that we've identified to do the upfitting is a company called Unplugged Performance, and they're based in Hawthorne, right next to SpaceX. So they are known as in the industry as the AMG of Tesla. They are probably the premier upfitter in the world and modification specialist when it comes to Tesla. So we've received quotes from them from the upfitting. That's included in the annual lease payment cost. It may not be clear in this matrix, so maybe I could take a moment just to address what those costs involve. The standard upfitting costs in that matrix refers to your typical light bar, prisoner partition, computer mount, push bar, the traditional spotlights, the traditional police equipment. And you'll notice there that the upfront cost for that is a little more expensive, a couple $1,000s more expensive than the gas Ford police interceptor. That's because, again, there's not a lot of economies at scale at work here. It costs a little more to do some custom work. The $4,000 that you see proposed there as modifications above or beyond the standard equipment upfitting cost is related to the installation of ballistic panels into the front and rear doors. We've identified that as a need with the intention that even if we stayed with the gas Fords, that those panels be installed in there as well. So it's showing here as an additional cost, but that's something that we'd anticipate carrying on if we did with the existing cars. If that makes sense.
Is there, and then forgive me if it's in here, but are there any challenges to having these particular sort of electric vehicles outfitted the way that you want them? Sort of being limited by, a lot of, I don't have a Tesla, but I understand that a lot of it is all sort of digitally kind of figured. Does that present any challenges to what you guys are doing?
That configuration, not necessarily, but what we have identified is any additional electrical draw to the car has the potential to reduce range, almost like it is for a gas Ford vehicle. The nice thing now is, contrasted when I first came on the job, is the electrical equipment that we install in the cars has significant, with the use of LEDs and the integration of those, has significantly less draw on the power systems than of years past. Even the processors in laptop computers are substantially more energy efficient than before. So while it does have the potential to reduce range, we have not received any information back from any of those other agencies that we're aware that it reduces range in any significant way.
I'd like to hear your thoughts. There's some concern, I think, voiced in the comment that we got about police pursuit ratings, whether these are suitable. Seems like from what we understand from Fremont, it's consistent with what we see, but can you speak to that issue?
Sure. And thank you for that question. It's a really good one. So there are two agencies that in our profession are really known for their vehicle testing. That's the LA County Sheriff's Department and the Michigan State Police. And the way their process goes is any manufacturer that wants to provide them a vehicle to test, they go ahead and do that. And then they test based upon different performance metrics. The interesting thing about a pursuit rated vehicle is it's really a misnomer because there is no national standard, there's no state standard, there's no local standard where if a vehicle achieves certain marks, it is crowned with the pursuit rated vehicle title. In fact, if I can, I'll just read from the Michigan State Police preface. It says the term pursuit rated vehicle has recently been called into question as no one fully understands what the term represents. The term pursuit capable is more appropriate as there is no sanctioning body or specific performance criteria to determine if the vehicle meets a specialized designation. Each vehicle has been modified from a civilian vehicle to perform better under the rigors of police use. These vehicles are engineered to repetitively stop in a shorter distance, accelerate faster, and handle better than the base platform. So, and at the end of the day, it's left up to the individual department to look at that data and determine whether or not a vehicle meets their needs. There is no shortage of performance data from reliable sources, luckily for us, when it comes to the Model Y. Let me just pass along a couple of those performance related issues. Acceleration is one of them. Currently, the police Ford Interceptor from those tests does an average 0 to 60 in 7.84 seconds. The Tesla Model Y long range, 4.8 seconds. So the acceleration performance is greatly enhanced. Braking, it's preferable for us to be able to brake, as quickly as we can. The built-in regenerative braking in the Tesla Model Y significantly reduces braking distance from a vehicle that is normally coasting. The handling, the battery pack placement in the Model Y is the center of gravity is lower. It handles significantly better than the existing Ford Explorer that we have. So much so that the Model Y is the highest rated, safety rated car that the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has ever tested. It even received a 5-star rate. It receives 5-star ratings in all categories and subcategories. But one of the important ones that we've identified is the rollover test. It even achieved a 5-star rating in that. So we're very confident that even though it's not a pursuit rated vehicle per se, that the performance is greatly enhanced over what we use now.
See that? That was all I had.
You brought up an interesting point in that it's up to the individual departments to sort of determine if the needs are being met by the vehicle. Have there been any discussions or poll survey with the rank and file officers that will be driving these cars to see how they will accept the new technology?
There have been, and we actually had a Tesla Model Y vehicle here that once test drove. It's interesting, and it kind of parallels EV adoption across the board, that ones that have driven it are proponents of it, ones that haven't are not. An interesting kind of fun fact when it comes to Tesla is, I don't know if you're aware, but Tesla spends $0 a year in advertising costs. Contrast that with legacy auto companies that spend in the billions per year. Tesla, their marketing plan, they call it is butts in the seats. When somebody gets into the car, sees how it performs, experiences the total experience, the car sells itself. I think that's been validated, over especially the last couple of years, where they went from total production of little under 500,000 vehicles in 2020 to this year, they're going to do a little under 1 million, and it's just accelerating from there. So the ones that, directly to your question, that have been in it, like it, the form factor, actually the the cargo space, the cubic footage is more than what we have now. So everything combined, we're fully confident that when it gets to that point and fully adopted, that they'll enjoy the total experience.
Thank you.
My one question is building on Commissioner Donnelly's question, in case of an emergency such as an earthquake or so, when our electricity may be down, have you thought about what would be the plan for that with having all the vehicles?
Yeah, thank you for that. About 10 years ago now, more or less, we had a wind event in the city that where we experienced some of the issues that, both of you are speaking to. And what we found is because of the electrical outage here, that it actually brought down our gas pumps that are fed by electricity. And there was no redundancy built in for that. So we're confident with the way the charging infrastructure is proposed here at City Hall, with the redundancy of other supercharging locations in our region, that we would have even better availability to charging the EVs than we have right now. So we're kind of looking at the plan as an enhancement based upon what we have now. And if the city elects at some point in time to go with the solar panels, battery storage, that would either further enhance our reliability and redundancy, and would get us almost all the way to complete energy independence for those fleet operations.
Thank you.
I hope that answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Great. Any other questions, comments? Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Do we, I guess that there's a recommendation that we discuss the matter, but I don't think there's any agenda item whereby we are voting on this item. Are we? Do you have any understanding of that? Okay. Terrific. So why don't we move to communications, City Council Liaison? If we can hear each other.
I think we can. I think I'm going to forego my report for this morning.
Okay, thank you. Staff liaison.
Good morning, Commission and council member. Thank you. Just going to want to give a quick brief on our traffic ballards that were discussed and recommended that we do research. I want to let you know that Public Work is still doing research on them, and it's we should have an answer shortly for them for the farmers market. Another item that I want to talk about, actually, Allison Worrell of our department is going to just brief you on the RFQ for our department. And Allison.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. I'm here to just give a very quick update on the Public Safety Assessment RFQ that we are going to be releasing this week. So the RFQ was approved for release by the city manager. We're looking to get it released officially by the end of this week, as I mentioned. Through the process, we are looking to increase efficiencies and workload, improve processes and procedures of the police department. And I believe that the fire department is also looking into something similar for the future. We expect to have the RFQ open until about mid-January. I believe January 14th will be our closing date for it. We will review the applicants that we receive, and then a formal RFP will be issued, and a consultant will be a consultant will be selected at that point. So we are very early on in the stages of this process, but we look forward to getting it released later this week. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any. No questions?
Can I ask that when it is released, if it could be circulated to?
Sure. We expect to have it released by Thursday of this week. It could possibly be released earlier, but we anticipate by Thursday, which I believe is the 16th.
Great. Yeah, if you could circulate us a link or
Sure.
copy of it, that would be.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you.
I could just interject one moment. Sorry to interrupt. In regards to the previous agenda item, I believe we were seeking your recommendation to the city council to transition our vehicles to BEVs. We went before the Natural Resource Commission last Monday, and they held a vote regarding that recommendation. So I don't know if it's appropriate to hold that at this time, but that's what was done before the other commission.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you for that. Does anybody want to make a motion to that effect to recommend?
Is that agendized? I'm just trying to.
So what we have on the agenda is the recommendation is that the commission discuss the purchase. I don't know the niceties of whether we needed to have that say.
I believe it's a little more descriptive in the staff report where it details what the police department was seeking. If I can refer to that.
Review and recommend. You're right. You're right. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's revisit that agenda item at this moment. Reopen that and open it up to see if anybody wants to make a motion consistent with the agenda report, the Public Safety Commission agenda report by the police department, which states, it is recommended that the commission review and recommend to the city council, the police department transition their entire vehicle fleet and the fire department transition their administrative vehicle fleet to battery electric vehicles. I'll make that motion. If we don't have it.
I'll second.
Okay. Commissioner Donnelly seconds. Let's do a roll call vote.
So roll call is Commissioner Kang,
Aye, yes.
Commissioner Donnelly,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Angelat,
Yes.
Chair Al-Saraf.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go back to the staff liaison communications.
On the staff liaison, we have no further, fire department has no further updates for you at this time. I appreciate it.
Thank you both very much. Commissioner communications. Why don't we start at the end and come this way? Commissioner Donnelly?
The only thing I have this month is it's great to see all of you in person. Some of you for the first time ever.
Likewise. Commissioner Angelat?
I just wanted to add a note of appreciation to the staff who have been balancing hybrid and in-person and the operations of virtual meetings. It's a tremendous lift, so thank you.
Commissioner Kang?
I agree with what everyone else has said before. And then usually I give a school update, but there really isn't much to report other than schools going well in person. There haven't been any transmission of COVID-19 within the school. So it's been very safe and positive and a great experience for everybody. Thanks.
Great. Commissioner Watson?
Just appreciation, but no additional updates.
Thank you. And likewise, it's good to see you all. Thank you to the commissioners for being here. Thank you to staff for being here and for all the work that you guys put into these reports and to making these meetings go smoothly. I think in the early part of next year, we're going to have probably elections for chair and vice chair. So keep that in mind. And also, I believe I think in March, we'll see some transition in terms of the commission makeup, depending on what our new mayor decides to do in terms of, I think there are a few of us who are terming out, or not terming out, who our current terms are ending. But I think the idea is to wait until March, or by March, we'll have a sense of what the transition will look like. But thank you all for, we're not quite out of the COVID you know, situation. I don't know what to even call it anymore. It's the pandemic. It's still the pandemic, but I think it feels very much like we're sort of, we did a lot during that period as a commission virtually, and looking forward to doing more as we continue forward in person. So thank you to everybody. Have a great day. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.